Welcome to episode 445 of the DFO Rundown, as always brought to you by Bet365. It's never ordinary. Get in the game. Use the promo code NATION, NATION, to get in a wide range of games. Of course, the NHL will resume on Wednesday. Of course, you got lots of NBA in that time. So check it out. Have some fun at Bet365. Lots of golf for you as well. I'm Jason Gregor. We welcome in Jeff Marek. And Jeff, the Olympics are over. Yes. The United States has won their first gold medal in men's hockey since 1980. And it's a win where, Canada clearly controlled the game. Anybody watching, I think, would agree with that. Nathan McKinnon, how he missed that net, I still don't understand. It's unfortunate. And, Hellebuyck, obviously, with one of the greatest saves ever on Devon Taves, just manages to get a shaft of his stick on it. And you know what? Hey, that's what happens. Sometimes the best team in the game doesn't always win. And that was the case today. And the U.S. got one big chance, and Jack Hughes came up massive for them.
I know what you're trying to say, but I'm always reminded of what Kelly Rudy used to always say to me when we worked together at CBC. He used to say, because I would say like, oh, this team got outplayed. And he would always say, yeah, but the last time I checked, the goalie was a team. Like, I know that as far as like how the play went and the shots on goal and tilted rink and zone times, etc. But you should never apologize for having a good goaltender. And that was probably the greatest performance we've ever. No, I shouldn't say probably. That was the greatest performance we've ever seen out of Connor Hellebuyck. Like, he saved the best performance of his life for the biggest stage on the gold medal, and you should never be embarrassed or be shy about having a great netminder. It goes to show you, all those old cliches about we should rename the game from hockey and just call it goalie, because that's really what it all comes down to. The game on Sunday was a protein shake for everybody, from Ned Harkness all the way to today, believes that whoever has the best goalie wins, and you shouldn't be embarrassed about that.
No, that's true. But at the same time, he had nothing to do on the McKinnon play. McKinnon just missed the net, right? You hit the net there, right? Yeah, you hit the net and you score, and you probably win the game. And it's unfortunate for McKinnon. I'm sure he'll think about that one for a while. Devon Taves will tell you, hey, I got to get more, meat on the bone on that one, whatever. What's interesting about it, one of the big storylines heading in was, the U.S., they got way more puck movers. Canada need puck movers. Anybody who watched the game, there's more to the game than just moving the puck. And Canada got the puck out of their own zone. I thought Colton Parayko played very well today for Canada. They weren't hemmed in their zone for long stretches. And did I see the Americans' puck moving abilities really help them? So if that's, because I've seen a lot of Canadians, if they had Bouchard and they had Schaefer, they'd win. Why? Why are they going to suddenly be the ones who are going to generate way more offense than what Canada generated today? The Americans had tons of puck movers. Yeah. Like, none of those guys are Werenski or Hughes, and you barely noticed those guys moving the puck today.
Having said all that, the Four Nations last year, where Jacob Slavin, in my opinion, was the best player in the entire tournament. Dylan Larkin may have been the best forward. I thought today was another great example of why Jacob Slavin is an elite defenseman. And it doesn't matter whatever his boxcar numbers are, his goals are, his assists, it doesn't matter. That was one of the best performances of the game on Sunday. And that goal, there were two for the United States, two players really popped for me. One was loud, and that was Connor Hellebuyck. The saves were spectacular. Was there some luck mixed along with it, to your point about Nathan McKinnon and Devon Taves and the reaching the paddle for the big hope save? Yeah, of course. But to me, the quietness and the efficiency at which Jacob Slavin was calm. Like this guy doesn't panic, Griggs, at all. Jacob Slavin is like the coolest player it doesn't matter what the stage is, what's happening with the crowd and the score and the momentum. Jacob Slavin, again, just the most efficient defender at the elite level on the biggest stage. He's not going to get headlines. That's Jack Hughes and Connor Hellebuyck. But for me, Jacob Slavin was outstanding. Just like he was at Four Nations, was outstanding Sunday against Canada. Good luck getting the puck under his stick. Good luck getting the puck around him. And when you talk about moving it out efficiently and productively, I thought Jacob Slavin came out, again, another star in this one for USA. But he won't.
What did you make of overtime?
I don't want to be the one that grouses about the 3-on-3. I don't like it for a big game like that. But the overtime to me was Connor McDavid tried to end it on his own. Connor McDavid, when he grabbed that puck, I think we all thought the same thing. Here comes McDavid's Crosby moment. It's going to be a different goal. It's going to be a rush, and McDavid is going to burn by two guys, and he's going to go top shelf on Hellebuyck or however he's going to get it in. But this is going to be McDavid's moment. Instead, Canadian players got trapped. And then it was a miscue that got over to Jack Hughes from Dylan Larkin, and he made no mistake and went 5-hole on Jordan Binnington. But I saw it as a moment where was Connor McDavid doing what he does every time the game goes into overtime with the Edmonton Oilers, and that is grab the puck and go and score. This time it had the most horrible consequence to it. This is like, the shady side of the mountain and the sunny side. He's thinking sunny side of the mountain. It turned into shady side of the mountain because that puck went the other way, and it was over for Canada on that pass, and a great shot by Jack Hughes. And give it to Binnington, because Binnington came out aggressively to challenge. Binnington gave everything to try to make that save.
Yeah. If you go back and I watched the replay many times, McKinnon and in 3-on-3, you hesitate for a slight second. There was a hesitation to go for the puck, and then it ended up being a battle, and that's going to happen, and it's unfortunate. Really, I think the missed opportunity, but really the biggest missed opportunity was the 5-on-3. I thought Canada, it looked like a group, and you don't get a ton of practice time, but their 5-on-3 was spread out. I've thought too much, and they were looking too often for, okay, we're going to be in the middle. Now we're going to move it over to the right or the left and shoot it. And, when you don't have that much practice time, I thought the 5-on-3, which is something you probably practice even less than 5-on-4. And I don't even know if you practice it that much, but they never really had a great chance. Like Celebrini had the one time, but it was from the middle, and Hellebuyck didn't have far to move on that one. It wasn't the old, moving it across half of the ice line to get over on the boards. Yeah. And, I give the Americans credit, but I thought Canada's 5-on-3 looked really sloppy.
I was kind of surprised all game long how often they gave Macklin Celebrini that look between the hash marks. I mean, he got lots of clean shots off, like right in front of Connor Hellebuyck. And I'm like, they can't do it. They can't do it. I will say one thing on the 5-on-3, even on the 5-on-4 as well. Like, the United States did a great job closing up passing lanes. Like the East-West game, where you think like players like Celebrini and McKinnon and McDavid will just dine out East-West and get the goaltender moving slot line passes. I got to give it to the United States. Their stick placement on those kills was excellent. How many times do you see those stops, Greggs? All the time. And it got to the point where you just all of a sudden you got to take low percentage one-timers. We saw Nathan McKinnon on that 5-on-3 just blast one that turned into the puck going all the way back into Canada's end. So I thought that the U.S. did a great job shutting down the East-West pass lanes, which seemed to be the way that Team Canada wanted to play. Having said that, I was still stunned at how many chances they gave to Macklin Celebrini. Like, how many times did you say to yourself in that game, Greggs, oh, here's Celebrini's moment. Here's the passing torch moment. Here's from Crosby to Celebrini. And U.S. was able, Hellebuyck specifically, able to shut it down.
How much do you think the absence of Crosby impacted Canada?
I think it impacted them a lot in the overtime. I think it impacted them a lot on the power play. I think probably psychologically it may have, although 3 periods. I mean, they controlled most. Yeah,
they dominated
play here. They really did. But where I would say they really needed Sidney Crosby, power play, and overtime, and just winning key faceoffs. Nick Suzuki had a hard time at the dot. We'll just be blunt. He had he won and he lost 6. Suzuki had a really tough time with faceoffs. That's where you really needed Sidney Crosby, starting out with possession so you're not chasing it. I have a hard time believing that Crosby wouldn't have contributed at least to 1 goal from Team Canada, whether he scored it himself or set it up. So, yeah, absolutely.
Now, Bo Horvat was great in the dot. 1-11, lost 3. He was pretty good for Canada. Sam Bennett, 6-5. He was solid. McKinnon was 8-7. But yeah, Nick Suzuki had a tough day in the dot for Canada. And you know what? It's interesting. Like, obviously, to have really good rivalries, you need both sides to win. And so that makes it no question. I think the USA, like I look at, we talk about Connor Hellebuyck and, just a monumental game for him. Offensively, obviously, Matt Boldy had an unbelievable individual effort on that goal because really they didn't have a ton of chances. I know there was the Gensel deflection that went off 2 bars, but, and the Matthews one, maybe, they go back in their power play. He'd probably tell you, hey, next time I got to shoot that rather than try to pass it back against to Matthew Tkachuk. But they didn't generate a ton of great chances overall. The Boldy play, like they won on a few just really good individual efforts. Boldy and then, of course, Connor Hellebuyck. And hey, Connor Hellebuck's part of the team. No one can downplay how good he was. And, you fast forward 2 years, which isn't that long. And my question to you, Jeff, is how many teams do you think are going to be in the World Cup?
Oh, that's a great one. First of all, I'm the one that's lobbying just to give the people what they want and just make this Canada versus USA and make it a best of 5 and just call it a day. That's the one that we wanted for nations. It's the one we wanted at the Olympics. It's very much a satisfy your customer type, world that we live in right now. Just give people what they want. But having said that, if you're going to do it, it's got to be more than 4 nations. And if you're going to do that, you're probably going to have to figure out a way to invite players from overseas too, and find some type of way that they can play as well. But I think that, like, you look at the land right now and you look at, okay, so who deserves to be in a tournament like that? Well, Canada, US for sure, Sweden, Finland for sure. How do you have Slovakia out now? How do you have Czechia out now? Like, when you look at like the rise of Slovak hockey here, and to say nothing of Germany as well. When you look at the rise of Slovak hockey, I mean, it wasn't that long ago, Greg, that we were talking about this thing is dead. Like, what has happened to Slovak hockey? It's dead. And give it to people like, ex pros like Marian Gaborik, who's gone out of his way to help rejuvenate that program. And now, Yuri Slafkovsky goes back to the NHL, and it's going to be, flowers for Slafkovsky in Montreal. And you hope that is another catapult for this young hockey player. But I would imagine that you'd have to have at least 2 more teams here, Slovakia and Czechia. What do you think?
Well, I think for sure. And then, a big question mark will be on the state of the war. And, I just hope for sanity's sake, it's over. And then, you'd have Russia involved in it. But the thing is, so then there's an 8th, because would they do a 7-team tournament? Not sure how you do that.
No.
So then you have an 8th team because you've got Leon Draisaitl, one of your best players in the league. And remember, the World Cup is run by the NHL. So you'd have Leon Draisaitl. You have guys in Denmark and there's players on these other nations, Switzerland, right? Roman Josi and different star players. And I know we had a team in Europe back in 2016. And I wonder if the 8th team would be that, because see, the little bit of the challenge is Czechia and Slovakia, that they're going to have to get some of their players from outside the NHL. And those leagues are already playing. So are they going to get approval from those? Are they just going to stack one team Europe from Czechia and Slovakia and Germany and all of them? That'd be a pretty damn good team, right? You got Pasternak and Draisaitl on your top line. That would be a pretty good line. But, I'm sure those players
Ralph
would like
Kruger
to play
coaching that. Yeah. Is Ralph Kruger coaching that one too?
Yeah, who knows? But I just wonder if how they're going to go about it, because I think they need it. My question is, to make it different, obviously they played 5-on-5 in overtime. So that's going to be different than the Olympics, right? But I wonder, I would like to see the World Cup go back to a best of 3 final. I think it was better.
Oh, I'm with you. I'm with you.
And so that's something that I wonder
Canada Cup
they
style
would consider. Yeah, because you're going to play it in North American time zone, right? Because that's where your league is. And you want to grow the game still. Like, they talk about growing the game globally, which they need to, but make no mistake, they still have to grow the game in the United States, because, hey, there'll be a lot of Americans pounding their chest, go USA, USA, the worst chant ever. But nonetheless, they'll do it. But they'll do it for 2 days and then it'll be gone. Hockey needs to grow the game the most, should be growing in the backyards of the USA. And it has grown. There's lots of places now where hockey is much more popular than it ever was even a decade ago, for sure. Never mind 2 decades ago. But they still have a massive untapped audience right in their own backyard. We can talk all we want to, or blue in the face about going globally. They need to keep growing it in the US. And the best way would be you have a rivalry. Like, you know what? And your idea, like maybe they mirror and you have the rivalry of the women. And I know it's different, but they have the PWHL. Now the majority of the players are in the PWHL, so they shut it down. They play the rivalry series. I get it all. The NHL is never going to shut down their league just to have Americans and Canadians play, although I could be wrong. Maybe they would. But at least if you have a best of three, and I don't care because Canada, Russia was an unreal best of three. If you had Sweden, USA, if you had Canada, Czechia, pick, I don't care who it is. If you have a best of three, it's going to be more engaging. Ideally, the best one we all know for the NHL would be USA and Canada because it's the two nations that host all your teams. But I would love, and it keeps it different because otherwise, every 2 years is great. And maybe it fuels the fire and it's even better. But I just wonder if you have subtle differences. Like look in soccer, you've got the World Cup, but then you got the Euros, right? And, CONCACAF and everybody has their own, but they're different, but they're still highly popular. And I think that's what the World Cup needs to be, a little bit different in a way than the Olympics.
You brought something up there that's really interesting too. And it sort of winks at, the question about NHLers going to the Olympics in the first place. What is it in service of? Now, the players themselves want to go. Like this has always been something the players have lobbied for. But from the capital H hockey point of view, and this is why I would always gripe with anyone on the NHL side who would say there's no value in this. We're not seeing an immediate return on investment. It's all risk for us. Our players go, they get injured. Look at the Islanders with Tavares and the Ottawa Senators with Dominic Hasek. And now we're, dealing with Kevin Fiala with the Los Angeles Kings, etc. It's not worth it. It's too much of a risk. And I always would go back to this idea of like, look, this is still a sport that's growing specifically in the United States. And one of the best things that ever happened in the United States was, of course, the Miracle on Ice in Lake Placid. And that win begat the Mike Modanos and the Chris Chelioses and the Kevin Stevens and the Jeremy Roenick's and that group. And then that group turned into the Pat Kane crew, which turned into the now Jack Hughes crew, which is going to turn into whomever knows what, and whoever knows is coming. But a lot of it tracks back to having that USA win. Now, I know it wasn't pro players, but having that USA win in 1980, the fumes of which we're still surfing on here in 2026. That's why that Miracle documentary on Netflix was so spectacular. We still care. We're still invested in it, and we feel it still affects USA hockey. Now, the best thing for capital H hockey, I know all of our Canadian viewers and listeners will not want to hear this. The best thing for capital H hockey and quote unquote growing the sport is for the USA to start things consistently. Because I assure you, if the United States was winning gold medals all the way through, those same owners that said, I don't think we should send NHLers, there's no return on investment for us. I'm pretty sure that if the U.S. was winning gold medals all the way through Nagano, Salt Lake, Italy, Vancouver, all of it, there wouldn't be this hue and cry about it's too risky for us to send our guys, because the return on investment would be a growth team and the growth in the elite level American player to go along with it. It's this sort of short-sighted ROI that I always freak out about when it comes to hockey, because 1980 gave us the Modano group, that gave us the Kane group, that's given us the Hughes group. That's your return on investment. So even though it's painful as a Canadian to say it, the best team won for capital H hockey here. Hopefully it helps with the growth of hockey. Like, look, Atlanta's going to get a team again. Houston's going to get a team. The NHL is still committed to going back to Arizona. Like, this is going to happen. I've always maintained, Greg, that if you're an expansion team in the United States, part of, and you've already talked about this, part of your promise of performance in that market is X amount of millions of dollars to set up a minor/youth hockey program for boys and girls. That has to be it, because you're right. That's the only way these things grow. And you know who's done a great job of that? Well, two teams, Columbus and Nashville. Nashville has done such a great, and it was from day one that they set this up. The Nashville hockey program is outstanding, and they host a ton of tournaments that attract teams from all over the world. That's the way it's got to be. But those kids have to believe that they're going to pick up hockey sticks and they're going to be Megan Keller, or they're going to be Jack Hughes, whom he referenced, by the way, or they're going to be Jack Eichel or Layla Edwards. You have to have that belief to make it work.
I think that's valid. And, you want to have a belief system. You watch that game. And the other thing it does is there's an emotional connection to when you watch games, and, win or lose, and you get people emotionally invested. I could tell you, we had a hockey practice today, which is brutal and whatever. So we had a hockey practice at 9:15 my time. So we had to leave after overtime, and drive to the arena. But the overtime started literally when we got there, and obviously to the technology, you can watch the game on the phone. There actually was a TV in the lobby, so I was like, well, I'll just wait for a whistle, then we'll run in, or we'll just watch it on our phone. And they scored while we were in the car. And as they scored, my son just handed me the phone. He's 12. He said nothing, and he just got out of the car, and then we went to practice. And I will say, I think, honestly, having that hockey practice right after losing was like the best thing. Because, we have shootouts and we do some fun games, and, they don't have to think about it as much. Because then he was driving home, he was like, Dad, I can't believe we lost. And, he's thinking about it. But he's like, it doesn't bug me as much now, because like anything. Because otherwise, if you'd have lost, and I know people sit at home right after they shut their TV off, and you stew about it. Like, it matters a lot. And, because they cheer for it, and you want the team to win, and you put in all that time, and it's just like, ugh. And that's what's great about sports, winning or losing, right? Team USA fans, the diehards who've been fans of that team for a long time, they've endured a lot of pain for a long, long time, and so now they get a win. And I can tell you, fast forward to the summertime, and the debates over the rosters and who's not going to be there and who's going to be there in 2028 are already going to start. And it's going to be like, Canada's going to have fans. They have revenge on their mind. And the US is like, well, we got to defend the title. And it's going to be great, right? And 4 years, in a way, I'm happy that you don't have to wait 4 years, because you waited 12. And after watching it, you're just like, my God, 12 years. Like, hopefully, they never get to a point again where you don't have NHLers in the Olympics. It just makes it better. And, you talk about, from an American standpoint, is having the role model, and not role models is the wrong word, because I think it's hard to have role models when you don't actually know them. But you can look and say, hey, that's a goal to reach, and say, hey, I could be the next Jack Hughes, or I can be the next Megan Keller, right? And I think what the women's game needs is they need more Europeans playing in the PWHL. And I know why they didn't play the first year, because of the timing of the announcements, but you get more of them playing, because then you will see more Finnish and Swedish and Czechia, and name those type of young girls seeing them. Because the women's game right now, the only problem is it's too predictable. It's always Canada and the US, and it's really not close. And so if they can get, and I think the show that, because you're going to have those players who are the best in some of those countries getting the opportunity. Like, look at Germany. Look at Germany's men's team. Look at Slovakia. Their best players get to play in the NHL against the best players all the time. And that allows them at times to carry them to other victories.
So there's a few things there. I'm glad you brought that up. So on the women's side specifically, you're starting to see the gap narrow a little bit. Like, you look at the Sweden power play this year, like the Swedish power play was insane. So they've gotten better. I think that there'll be more Finns playing in the PWHL. That's an improved program as well. So I do think the gap is going to narrow. And I think a lot of it too, Griggs, is out of necessity too. Like, listen, Hillary Knight has already announced not coming back. Like, this is her last Olympic cycle. I think we wonder about, on the Canadian side, players like Natalie Spooner. I think we wonder about Marie-Philippe Poulin's a great example too. Maybe Renata Fast as well. Like, there's different decisions that women need to make for their career that men don't, namely starting families. So that's, not going to shut down someone on the men's side, not going to shut down their season, where it on the women's side of the ledger. So there's going to be an attrition of athletes here that, that's my last Olympic cycle, and I'm going to look to wind things down now. And the league wants to expand too. So to your point about Europeans, they're going to need more. Like there's some great college kids coming. I didn't even mention Carolyn Harvey, who may have been the best player in the entire tournament. Holy smoke, Shorty skates like Cale Makar. Like hands down the best. And Renata Fast is elite, but like Carolyn Harvey, no one skates like her. On the women's side, she's only 20 years old. But they're going to need more European players in the PWHL if they're going to sort of, all the other nations are going to rise alongside Canada and the United States. Now, one of the issues too with the PWHL is they have to get to a place where they make their own stars. Because right now their stars are made at the Olympics and then they go play in the PWHL. Or their star shines the brightest at the Olympics and they also play in the PWHL. The NHL, which makes their own stars, and then we see them on the Olympic stage, it's still the opposite on the women's side of things. That's the next step for the PWHL as a lot of people see it. Can they get there? We'll see.
Yeah. Well, overall, I think you have to rate the, seeing the NHL back in the Olympics after 12 years, it was worth the wait. It was a fantastic tournament. There was lots of overtime games. I understand why you have 3-on-3 in the quarterfinals, even the semis, because you have a second game. If I was making one small change, I would have it 5-on-5 in the gold medal game only, not the other ones, just because I get why you got so many games and you got to keep playing. I understand that I can't play forever, but the gold medal game. Now I know someone said, "Hey, Gregor, they got the closing ceremonies." I totally understand that. You do have a significant amount of time though. Like very rarely does overtime last 3 hours. So I know there's been the outside exception to it, but most NHL games that last that long don't have the talent level from forward 1 to forward 12 that you have in the Olympic Games. So I don't think that we would see, 5 overtime periods. Anything is possible. Yes, I don't think we'd see it. So that'd be my only one change. And hey, because it's not like, because you can't say, well, you're changing the rules. No, they're not. They don't have 20-minute 3-on-3 in the semis, right? Or the quarters. They only have it in the final. So you can't tell me they couldn't do it if they wanted to.
No, I get that. Like I'm very much of the mind that hockey at that level should be decided 5-on-5. Like I to be honest with you, I think any elimination game should be 5-on-5 overtime. Like the one thing you want to remove from any discussion is it's not real hockey. Yeah, we lost in overtime, but it was the 3-on-3. Like you want to remove that as much as you can from that equation. Now, I get it. Both sides agree that these are the rules we're going to play by. I'm just saying, like, as a fan, and maybe it's just because I'm conditioned to it, I'll take the 5-on-5. I'll still take the 5-on-5. And I would be saying the same thing, even if Canada won in the 3-on-3. I'd still say, I'd rather see that one 5-on-5. Because it's like you have to you play differently. Like you just do. Like look at we had this tournament talking about which brother combination were we talking about the most going into this tournament? The Kachucks. But then by the end, because of the 3-on-3, we're talking about the Hugheses. Quinn scores against Sweden, Jack scores against Canada, and they come out the big stars. Which one is quote unquote closer to the quote unquote real hockey? The 5-on-5 or the 3-on-3? And the Hugheses come out the major stars. Well, no surprise. These guys are two of the most elite skaters and find open ice, et cetera, in the game. And that's the game that they excel at. So it is interesting that with that wrinkle of the 3-on-3 at the Olympics for overtime, you always probably have to consider that in the back of your mind. If it gets there, who are we putting out there? Now, with Canada, it's easy. Nathan McKinnon, Cale Makar, Connor McDavid. Like it's a pretty simple one, but the United States had their own secret weapons there too, right? Like Jack is great in OT. Quinn Hughes, great in OT 3-on-3 as well. So I always kind of catch myself and say, yeah, you really need to consider what if this goes to 3-on-3, and then the other one, what if it went to a shootout, Griggs? Then how would we feel about all of this? Shades of 98.
Shootout.
Shades of 98.
Yeah, shootout wouldn't be ideal either. But hey, you know what? Different sports have. Soccer's had World Cups decided by a shootout before. So, you could have it. Give it if you want to say, hey, after 3 periods, or even if you want to say after 2 periods, then they would go to a shootout. I could probably live with that. If you have to. So we'll see how it goes, but it would be interesting. All I know is I look forward to the next best on best. And the great part is we don't have much time off, and then we get into the stretch drive, and we're going to get to Pat Puff, and then we're going to end today's pod talking about the stretch drive in the National Hockey League, because it's going to be wild and crazy for lots of teams who are in or out. But we bring in Pat Puff to the pod. Patty, how you doing?
Oh, I've been better, a little confused, a little tired, a little disappointed. It's a lot of emotions today, but, I'll help you transition to the NHL because, I am a little bit excited. As much as this was fun, the Milan games, it was great, but we'll help you transition over to the NHL with buy or sell, a presentation of Bet365. Whatever your bet is, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Download the app, get in the game, use the code NATION at Bet365. Must be 19 or older. First one I have for you guys. Jordan Binnington obviously played really great in this tournament, and it wasn't quite enough in that last game. I think he did everything he could, though. Buy or sell. Did Jordan Binnington sell anybody on his stock rising here in the Milan games going into the trade deadline here, Gregs?
Yeah, I think a little bit. There's not a long list of teams that would be looking for goalies right now, but there's a few. And I think Jordan Binnington has proven again that he's a guy in big moments, can make big saves at key times for your team. And the ultimate job you want as a goalie is give your team a chance to win. And that's what he's done in consecutive years, best on best.
Short answer, yes. I just don't know if it's something that the St. Louis Blues do before trade deadline, or much like with maybe someone like Robert Thomas, you open the field up a little bit more at the draft and in the offseason. That one to me sounds like it's an off-season deal. And we've talked before about how it's difficult for goaltenders to get traded middle of the season or trade deadline and have an impact. It's a tough adjustment. You're a goaltender with a new team. And that's why, I agree with you, Pat. I think he has. And Griggs, I think he has improved himself and shown himself on a big stage, big team, good team, all of it. I just don't know if that one would be one that you would get done before deadline. That one to me sounds like an off-season move.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Speaking of moves, we'll just get to my second trade question. Simple one. Buy or sell. The trade freeze, I believe, ends tonight. Are we going to get a big trade within the first week of coming back into NHL action, Jeff? What do you think?
A big trade? Ooh.
Even just a medium one.
It was a trade freeze, but it doesn't mean that the cell phones don't work and that managers weren't allowed to talk to one another. I think we get something. I don't know that we get, a Mikko Rantanen deal like we saw last year before the deadline itself, either the day of or maybe a day or two before. But I think it would be foolhardy to think that these teams weren't having conversations and are sort of poised to pull the trigger probably within the first few days to the return. Griggs?
Oh, yeah, no question. I know the trade freeze is officially, 11:59 Eastern, 9:59 Mountain, 8:59 Pacific tonight. So would a team announce it right away? Maybe. I think we could see some as early as Monday, though, for sure. I'm not sure they're going to do it late that night, but I could see a Monday trade announcement or two. You've had 3 weeks, and we've seen historically teams, you try to get guys in a little bit earlier than you can. Like if you announce a trade on Monday, the player doesn't have to fly that day. You know what I mean? Like maybe it's something that's being discussed. You can let them know, here we go. Now you're prepared. You got a few extra days to move. Some teams are playing Wednesday. Some aren't playing until Thursday. So there is a benefit here if you can announce it on Monday for some of these teams and maybe even some Sunday night, just because it gives a little bit more time for a player to get in there and practice for a day or two before playing with their team.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, it'll be exciting to see. It's one of those things that we look forward to every single year. The last question I have for you, and this one again is just trying to make you think, because I'm trying to stump you on one. But the Norris Trophy is something that we gave to Cale Makar early this season, and Werenski has fought his way back into it for good reason. But my question is actually about Quinn Hughes, because his number is pretty high right now on Bet365. And my argument, here's a couple stats. Wild 16-5-5 since acquiring Hughes. Their goal differential was +6 in the first 32 games, +26 in their last 26 with Quinn. And now a gold medalist and is going to ride a little bit of confidence here at the end of the season. I mean, he's only a couple points behind Bouchard and Werenski, and I know it's not about points, but I just think his number is really, really high on Bet365 right now.
Yeah, he's see to me the race is, and we'll see what happens with Cale Makar coming back from the Olympics, a very disappointed player, whereas Quinn Hughes and Zach Werenski will have the wind at their sails. To me right now the race is between Zach Werenski and Quinn Hughes. I've said Werenski recently. This has been like about the last month and a half where I've been on Team Werenski here for the Norris Trophy. I wonder how much Columbus's success will be tied to Zach Werenski winning the Norris Trophy. But as much as Quinn Hughes has provided that shot in the arm for the Minnesota Wild, there were times there where we thought the Columbus Blue Jackets were flat out dead. That is Julius Caesar, as Sean Connery said in The Untouchables. I'm still on Werenski. I'm still with Werenski on this one, but I'm warming more to Quinn Hughes. We'll see what happens when the Minnesota Wild come back to action here. Right now, I'm Werenski for the Norris.
Yeah, Werenski is good. Quinn Hughes is definitely going to get a lot of votes. He was actually, I know he's at +2,500 today. He was at +3,000 a few weeks ago, and he hasn't even played any NHL game since then. So I think maybe people had time to look more at the numbers of what Quinn Hughes has done in Minnesota and overall. The one thing that might hurt him a little bit is his goals. He's got 5 where Werenski's got 20. And I do, assists are great, but at the end of the day, you can make more of an impact when you're the actual scorer of the goals. So that'll be part of it. But make no mistake, both of them just won a gold medal. So maybe that evens out a little bit for them. And I think the other thing is Minnesota's safely in a playoff spot and Columbus isn't. And for some people, even though I don't think it should, for that, because it's not the most valuable. It's just who's the best defenseman. It's not how good's his team. It's who's the best defenseman. Yeah. And it shouldn't matter to me if you're in the playoffs or not for that award. Most valuable to your team, if you're not on the team and they still miss the playoffs, then your value isn't, if you don't make the playoffs, well, great. But if you're not there, then they still don't make the playoffs. So your value isn't that high. But for best defenseman, it has nothing to do with value to your team. It's just who's had the best year. But historically, it does seem to hurt guys if they don't make the playoffs. And I don't think that's accurate. Or that's the most intelligent way to vote, but I think that might hurt Werenski if he doesn't. So Jack Hughes right now, 100%. I would do that if I was somebody. Why not?
Yeah, I just think it's interesting. At +2,500, Werenski is -110 for anyone listening podcast. And I just think, I'm not saying it's going to happen, and I'm sure you guys are going to talk about this as the pod goes on, but if Minnesota keeps going, they're slowly catching the Avs. If the Jackets fall off, it's just something that could happen. And I noticed a wild line there for Quinn Hughes, so I thought I'd bring it up. But that's all I've got for you. Buy or sell by Bet365.
Good one. That's a good one.
I like it.
That's a good one.
So now let's switch to the NHL, and we are in the stretch run. Some teams have as few as 23 games. That's the Washington Capitals, who have played the most games in the National Hockey League with 59. But then you have some teams who have as many as 27 games: Tampa, Colorado, San Jose. And that might benefit San Jose if they still believe that they got a shot. If you look at the playoff race, San Jose right now is currently sitting with where I had it for a sec. Now I've lost it. San Jose, there they are. They're just they're 5 points out of the playoffs, 1 game in hand. They got to jump 3 teams to get in: Nashville, LA, and then Anaheim. But they're also in the tie for 3rd there with Seattle. So there's 2 spots that they're 5 points back. I think it's pretty hard to do. They are a -22 team. So I still don't think their window's there as good as Celebrini has been for them. But there are some teams. Let's start in the West. And let's go to the LA Kings, because that's obviously the Panarin acquisition.
Sure.
But the Fiala subtraction due to injury in the Olympics. How much do you think that impacts the Kings, who open up 3 points out of a playoff spot?
For a team that has a hard time scoring goals, it's massive, right? Like, that's obvious. And not that it's a wash, because Artemi Panarin is just a better player than Kevin Fiala is. But still, when you're on a team that has to essentially, Greg's like grind for every single goal, like the Los Angeles Kings have to, removing that hot stick out of your lineup that has the ability to score an easy one, that's a killer. That's why if you're Ken Holland, you're probably saying to yourself, look, the organization doesn't want Anze Kopitar to end his career in the regular season. They want Kopitar to end his career in the playoff. So you're Ken Holland. You're thinking right now, okay, how do I do this? Do I have the assets to do this? And who's the player or players that we bring in to try to replace the goals that have just left with a hospital bracelet on for Kevin Fiala? I think if you're Holland, for sure, this one, and you're fighting for your playoff lives. And again, this is the one that you're doing for Anze Kopitar. I think pressure's on for LA to do something, because you can't, unless you're planning like a massive coaching change that's going to hire your team, you got to replace those goals somehow, and that's not easy to come by. What do you think?
Oh no, I think it's kind of like a big step forward to get Panarin, and probably would have pushed him in. Still could push him in because he's a better offensive player than Fiala. But for a team star for goals, now you lose one. The problem is the list isn't long. There's no other Panarin out there for sure. I'm not even sure there's a Kevin Fiala player scoring that's we know for sure is available. So Ken Holland's got his work cut out for him. And the interesting thing is, do you really push all your chips that far in, or do you say, hey, I think we could beat Seattle even without adding someone else? And I think there's some validity to that argument.
Yeah. Do you think though, because I kind of wonder, and maybe this is just this romantic idea that I have for myself, like you don't want it, like when Trevor Linden retired, it was on the last game of the season in the Calgary Flames, and Jerome McGinley made all the Flames players go and shake his hand, both as a great player in the NHL, but two as his service as the last, I guess, president of the NHL Players Association. But do you really want like your franchise icons, you want to really have their careers end in the regular season, or do you want it in the playoffs? You can say the same thing about the Washington Capitals and the decision that sits in front of Chris Patrick here. But I just can't help but thinking, like, given what Anze Kopitar has meant to this organization, what he's done for the Los Angeles Kings, how, he's essentially Patrice Bergeron West and has been for so long, and helped them, bring 2 Stanley Cups to Los Angeles. I just don't see the organization saying, you know what, the deals aren't there. We're going to sit on our hands. We're not getting the value we want. And if it means that Kopitar is going to retire after game 82, so be it. Maybe I'm just too romantic about this idea of getting him into the playoffs for one more push. So maybe the problem's me.
Yeah, I'm going to be fascinated to see what the Kings do. What about the Oilers? They bring back Paul Coffey to their bench. You know what? I know the owner was the one who got this ball rolling, and the coach still had to agree to it. It's going to go one of two ways. Like, I know people say, well, how could he not agree to it? He get fired in the summer. Well, he got agreed to it and still get fired in the summer. I think that's kind of irrelevant to it. Yeah. I talked to Knobloch about it, and he feels that, they're kind of missing something on their team and even on the staff. Paul Coffey's a little bit more direct. And, I think really the one guy who's probably upset about it is Mark Stewart. He got a pretty significant demotion. He's not running the bench anymore on the blue line. Now he just runs the penalty kill. And I'm curious where you come out on the Paul Coffey returning to Edmonton.
Every team needs a hype man. Like, you're there, you're closer to it than I am, but there just seems sometimes to be like a really dark cloud around this team, right? And like a lot of sort of like negativity or skepticism. Like, I think that one of the first things that Paul Coffey does, and I don't want to make this sound frivolous, although I think it might sound that way, but athletes need it. The cheerleader is like someone who's there that believes in all guys on the back end. Like, not that Evan Bouchard, Matthias Ekholm, and Darnell Nurse, and Jake Wallman need a hype man, but it's always better when you have someone that's got you believing in yourself, right? Like, I don't know how good Paul Coffey is as an X's and O's guy or a tactician that way. I think he has a pretty good feel for who works with one another, but I never think it's a bad idea to have someone who's a sort of vocal supporter of you behind the bench at all times. You coach, Griggs. How big a deal is confidence? Whether you play minor hockey or whether you play in the NHL. It's everything. And when you have someone like that on the bench, I think you're always in a better situation. And he does have a feel for pairs. Like he really does. Who's working well with who? So I don't know about the X's and O's, but hype man, understanding pairs. I think Paul Coffey's solid, and it doesn't cost you anything. I do feel bad for Mark Stewart given that, but it doesn't cost you anything to help you.
Yeah, he works, I think, a lot more on the mental side and just how he approaches the game that way with players. You know, Stewart's still going to work with the defense and the video room and stuff. That's not really Coffey's thing. It's more the in-game management in the game at times, like when things go wrong, like Paul Coffey, where he's great at, I think at times, and he talked to his defenseman, is you're right. Like he builds up. Now, that doesn't mean he doesn't challenge his players. He's like, hey, if you don't move the puck, I'll get someone else. Like, don't sit there and say he's like a helicopter parent who's overseeing and loving them. But when the game's on, he's all about a positive approach and reminding guys what they're capable of and what they're doing. And so we'll see, like, hey, the Oilers have been inconsistent defensively. There's no question. The first 22 months, 26 games, they were awful. Then the next 25 games, they're the third best. They went from 30th to third. And then for the last 7 games before the break, they were dead last again. So being inconsistent, no question. Their penalty kill was top 10 for the first 53 games, then absolutely awful for the last 5 games, allowed 9 on 14. You need some saves from your goalies. You need a few clears when the puck's right on the defenseman's stick. So is it something they can fix? Yes. The other factor is, though, Draisaitl and McDavid, they're 2 best players. Right, there's, you see it. McDavid has his fingers taped. Well, that doesn't mean he's got any sort of serious injury. His fingers could be taped. Like, what does that mean? But I do think they're going to have to monitor their minutes for a little bit coming out of the break, especially McDavid's.
To me, I've been banging this one all season long, and I haven't stopped. To me, the goal is to build your third line. Like, that's the question. Like, we know what Leon's going to give you. You know what Connor's going to give you. What's your third line? Like, when you look at the Edmonton Oilers, Greg's, like, are you not saying to yourself, look at the third lines that we've seen in the Stanley Cup finals before? Tampa, Florida, the Penguins, like teams that have had great Anaheim, teams that have had great third lines that you can say the top 6 wash, third lines where you win the cup. Is Edmonton there yet? You know what you're getting with Connor, know what you're getting with Leon. These are elite. What's your third line? To me, if you're Stan Bowman, it's I got to build my third line here. That's why I wonder about like Hoyle or Jenner in Columbus. But it sounds like Don Waddell's taking a run at re-signing these guys. We'll see.
What about Colorado? They got to get bigger on their blue line, don't they, before the deadline?
Yeah, and maybe the help there is in Winnipeg. Perhaps, whether it's Logan Stanley or whether it's Luke Schenn. Like, look, Winnipeg's out of it. I don't think that's any revelation to anybody. The MVP of the gold medal coming back to reality and playing in the NHL now with a defense that is not the same defense that he just played behind. But nonetheless, I mean, Kevin Cheveldayoff's decisions here are pretty obvious. Do you want to ring the bell with Logan Stanley? Because this is his shot. He's had a good year. This is his shot at getting paid. And do you also say maybe it's time for Luke Schenn as well? I don't disagree that the Avalanche might need to get better on the back end. Those would be 2 that I would be looking at if I'm the Colorado Avalanche for sure. And what are Nathan McKinnon and Cale Makar going to be like coming back after that game? Is it going to be like it's a real gut punch, or is it going to be these guys come back hungrier than ever? We'll see.
And lastly, in the West, Bill Guerin has taken some big swings. He built the USA roster. It clearly worked, right? Their penalty kill was perfect. So people who didn't want Trocheck and Miller are probably a little bit quieter. And don't tell me PK doesn't matter. 5-on-3, hello, pretty big deal. He also swung big, got Quinn Hughes. Do you think he swings big again, looking at this team and say, man, we've been one of the best teams in the league since we got Quinn Hughes?
It's the winter of Billy. right? Let's not forget the Faceoff monster contract too, that raised eyebrows everywhere. So between that and the Quinn Hughes deal and the gold medal for USA, I still don't think that Bill Guerin is done writing what many would look at as a masterpiece as a general manager, right? He's got Olympic gold. He's got the biggest contract in the history of the NHL, picked up one of the best defenders in the NHL, and he still has room to make his team better. Just knowing Bill Guerin and how he operates, I don't think Guerin comes this close and then all of a sudden gets real conservative on us. I still think he's got a lot of Jim Rutherford in him, and says, if we're in for a penny, we're in for a pound. We already saw Vincent Trocheck joking about taking photographs with the Minnesota Wild guys at the Olympics. So I don't think for 1 second that Oda is done. And I still think there's at least one more big swing from Bill Guerin for a center, for sure. What do you think?
Yeah, I'd be stunned if he didn't. And I think I'd be disappointed. Like, Colorado was off to a great start. But Colorado for the last month and a half, they're not unbeatable.
Fade. Yeah.
Right? I think if you're Minnesota, you're going for it. You know, you've got Kaprizov's new contracts kicking in next year. Now, I know the cap goes up, but you know what? You only get so many times, and you know there's some good karma going on with his team right now. So I would definitely take a big swing trust me, Bill Guerin is one of the most active GMs in the league. He's shown it time and time again. He's not afraid to make a big move. I think he's got another one in him. I think Minnesota Wild fans before like we get to the deadline, right after it, fans, I'll say this: I'd be more surprised if they don't have a big addition than I will be if they do.
With you. Agree 100%. Absolutely.
So now we go over to the East, and it's a little bit different because you've got, you got the Tampa Bay Lightning. They're pretty comfortable where they're at. Montreal and Detroit, they're sitting in tied for second with 72 points, but the Buffalo Sabres are only 2 points back. Now they've still got like a good 7-point lead if we want to fall all the way to the wild card. So, if you're Montreal and Detroit, I think you're pretty confident that you can finish this one off for sure. But those two teams first, do you see a position of glaring need for the Red Wings or the Canadiens?
For the Detroit Red Wings, I still think it's one more top 6 forward and one more top 4 defenseman. I think that's been the desire all season long for Steve Yzerman. Does he get both? Probably not. But does he get one? Probably. Right? Like the Detroit Red Wings, as we know, they were in the nation with Quinn Hughes, Rasmus Anderson. Like it's not exactly a trade secret that Detroit wants another top 4D. And they want a top 6, sorry, I shouldn't say it. It's not exactly a secret. They want a top 4D and they want a top 6 forward. So I think that's what we're looking at there. As far as the Montreal Canadiens go, I still look at Montreal and I say to myself, they're a year ahead of schedule, right? Like Yuri Slafkovsky is coming back from the Olympics full of confidence. I know the gold medal game wasn't great for Nick Suzuki, but had a real nice tournament and got all of that experience playing for Team Canada. Like any other team that's headed for the playoffs, defense is always a top issue for a squad. And the main thing for Montreal is like solid goaltending. Like that's where they're at right now. Like they have a lot of the pieces here that just need to mature, but they need to get solid goaltending if they're going to do anything in the postseason. More so than they did last year, which is essentially just get in and then get beaten by the Washington Capitals. But I look at Montreal and say they're a year early for where they are on their cycle. What do you think?
No, I think they had to make the playoffs this year. I think there was lots of pressure on them to get there. And you know what? They've had key contributions up and down. And I think for them, in a year of maybe fatigue and definitely injury that Florida has endured, that's opened up the door, no question, for a spot that a lot of people thought would have been a lock. But obviously when, you have the Barkov injury, that changed everything for the Florida Panthers. So Detroit, a year early maybe to go deep, yes, but I still think Detroit at the start of the year, I said they got to take a step and be a playoff team. And through almost just 3/4 of the season, they're looking pretty good right there, which leads me to Florida, Jeff. And the Panthers, there's some rumblings about guys still banged up in Florida. They currently sit in 14th place in the Eastern Conference. They are 8 points behind Boston, and that's Boston has the second wild card. But Columbus has 65, Washington 65, Ottawa 63, Toronto 63. Even the Flyers have 61. They played one fewer game. And then you get to Florida. And that's a lot of teams to pass when you're banged up. Do you think Bill Zito looks and says, maybe we retool a bit here, and rather than trying to make a splash? Like a splash to me wouldn't make any sense. I think it actually makes more sense for them to look to see if there's some guys they can move out, because they actually have too many bodies for next year when you consider Barkov, and who hasn't played all year long, right? Even Nosek, that they just got too many bodies. Yeah.
So a couple of about the Florida Panthers, the hill is too high to climb for them. Like they've dug themselves into this. Injuries, the major factor, of course, Alexander Barkov being Exhibit A, as you mentioned. I wonder about the health of Brad Marchand and Matthew Tkachuk. There were times in this Olympic tournament where I wondered to myself, because Brad Marchand every time he was out there was like 110%, and I wondered, is he playing like a guy that knows that this is the last hockey he's going to play this season? Like, I really do want, if you're the Florida Panthers, would there not be some value here in saying to your two banged up superstars, Brad Marchand and Matthew Tkachuk, shut it down for the season? It's not there for us this year. Shut it down for the rest of the year. Do all the healing that you need, all the rehab that you need. We're going to come back at this thing next October. That to me would make a lot of sense. If it were different, if they were 1 point out of a playoff spot, or if they were up 2 points in the Atlantic and fighting to keep themselves alive, maybe it would be different. But these two banged up bodies just to get there, I wouldn't be surprised if both got shut down for the remainder of the season. Now, the other thing that I do wonder about here is, I really wonder about the goaltending situation. Now, Sergei Bobrovsky is going to the Hockey Hall of Fame, right? Sergei Bobrovsky has distinguished himself with Vezina trophies and Stanley Cups, etc. It's funny, it wasn't that long ago we were write him off, and what a dumb move by Dale Talon. Next thing you know, he's got a couple of Stanley Cup rings. I really do wonder if he's not coming back, and I have not heard anything about contract extension with Sergei Bobrovsky. I would not be surprised if the Florida Panthers moved Sergei Bobrovsky. And if they do that, I would wonder about a team like the San Jose Sharks, who are still fighting for a playoff spot, probably want a veteran goaltender to play with Askarov, and probably bonus if that goaltender is a Russian goaltender as well. Maybe a contract extension. They have a lot of cap space to play with here. That is, and I'm just sort of freestyling this one here, that is a move that would make sense to me for both teams. If Florida is not going to bring back Bobrovsky, he's an unrestricted free agent come July 1st. If we're going to play goalie on the move, San Jose would make sense to me for Bobrovsky.
Interesting. He does have a 16-team no trade clause, so I don't know if the Sharks will be on it or not. Guess we would find out. We saw that, Artemi Panarin was considering the Sharks, and, San Jose. Now, there's a little bit different taxes, which I'm not a big believer in that. I think Panarin just showed it that going to California, that doesn't really worry about it that much. But it would be fascinating. Part of me thinks the Panthers, I know what happens when you win Stanley Cups. Teams, you get loyal to guys and you want to stay there. And Bobrovsky's like, I don't really want to move somewhere else. I'll take less money. I'm just coming off a contract to pay me 10 sheets a year. I think I'll do all right. Yeah. So, he hasn't had a great season. There's no question about that. He probably thinks him, like the team, can bounce back next season. I'm more so interested in a guy like Evan Rodri. I think that's I look at their roster and they've got so many bodies. You just fit. You can't keep them all, right? AJ Greer, I think, would have some interest for teams. at the deadline?
Oh, yeah.
A lot, or just looking for some tenacity down in your lineup, but right, knows his role. He's a fourth line guy. That's what he is. But he was a valuable fourth line guy in his limited minutes for Florida, right? Doesn't make much, makes about $850. So it's an easy contract to take on. But Evan, what do you think about Evan Rodrigue for them? He's, he only makes $3 million, right? The guy's a pretty good performer in the playoffs. I think Florida, if they're looking to move, that's a guy that I think a lot of teams would be interested in.
He's been around the NHL. There's no secrets on the kind of player that he is. I think that's for those, like, for teams that are not looking to make a power move. Like, I think the Dallas Stars are trying to make a power move, right? Like, I think like the Dallas Stars are either going to either make a power move or just bring in like a number 6 defenseman. Like, it's no middle ground here. We're gonna go all power. Like that's going to be it. It's a powerful move or nothing. We're just going to add like a depth defenseman. But for a team that's like, oh, you know what, we're close and just need a tiny little piece to put us over, because let's not forget too, as managers will always tell you, rings in the room, right? Rings in the room. What's the experience we need is in the room. And I think that's one of the things he provides. And he's got a great motor. He knows how to play playoff hockey. I like him. To me, if I'm a team that's tucked into a playoff spot and I want a little more experience up front, I could see that move.
Yeah. The Columbus Blue Jackets, one of the hottest, people might forget because it's been almost 3 weeks by the time they dropped the puck, but they've won 7 in a row. They're 9 of their last 10. They've pulled within 4 points of Boston for a wild card spot, 4 points of the Islanders. They have 2 games in hand of the Islanders for third in the Metro Division. What do you think, Don Waddell and the Blue Jackets? They already made a move. I'm not surprised if they make another one. I think that's an organization that's close, that really wants to get in.
I agree. I think it's important for them to get in. It's been a challenging year. It's never great to get insulted publicly by Bill Simmons, as essentially being an irrelevant marketplace. I mentioned earlier that it sounds very much like Waddell is trying to bring back, Goodbranson and Boone Jenner and Charlie Coyle. Those are all players on expiring deals. Mason Marchment as well. Like, all players that teams would want come trade deadline time. But you're right. Like, how do you entertain moving these guys right now, unless you can re-sign them all? How do you entertain moving these guys when Rick Bowness has them on a heater? Like, to me, Columbus was the one team that didn't want the Olympic break. Even the Buffalo Sabres had lost a handful of games before the break, because you'd be saying like, oh yeah, Buffalo doesn't want to stop playing. Yeah, they were kind of softening there right before the Olympics began. The team that didn't want to stop, Greg's, was Columbus. Because they were just rolling through everybody. And I would hate for that team, that market, that coach, that manager, like all of it, to come to a halt just because of an Olympic break here. So I hope for Columbus's sake, because it's an easy organization to cheer for. I hope for Columbus's sake that they can pick up where they left off, knowing full well that's real hard, because the juju was just so good. And Rick Bowness had these guys playing great, and defensively they had tightened up, and Jack Greaves was playing fantastic. I hope that it continues for Blue Jackets, but I think that Waddell's got some big decisions here to make as well, because I don't think in a market as sensitive as Columbus, you can let some of those players, Marchment, Coyle, Branson, Jenner, walk for nothing at the end of the year. I really don't think so.
And lastly, how concerned should Penguin fans be?
Well, Dan Muse, their coach, said we'll have to wait and see until he comes back. But yeah, it's been one of the great stories of the season, right, around the NHL. And it was funny, when it first happened, when Crosby got initially tied up with Radko Gudas and then hit along the boards in the sandwich. One of the first cutaway shots was to the Team Canada manager's box, and Kyle Dubas, who's just like thinking to himself, 1, Team Canada, but 2, how does this affect my Pittsburgh Penguins? I don't have a hot take on this one. I don't have an answer. I don't have anything other than, and this is incredibly concerning if you're the Pittsburgh Penguins, for all the hard work they did this year, for all everything from Malkin to Ben Kindle, everyone that's had the seasons that they've had, for that blue line, that Dan Muse has squeezed everything out of, for it to start to go south because of an injury at the Olympics, that's the fear we always talk about, right, Griggs? The Olympic injury that takes a team out. And you hope for Pittsburgh's sake, and just watching the pictures there now of the Gudas hit and the sandwich with Gudas and Natchez. You just hope for Pittsburgh's sake that Crosby's not on that list now with John Tavares and Kevin Fiala, Dominic Hasek. That would just be awful for the Penguins. But as Dan Muse said, we'll have to wait till he gets back.
Yeah, and the thing about the Penguins, so they come back and they play, their first game isn't until Thursday. They take on the Devils, then they got the Rangers. So their first two games are against non-playoff teams. So you're like, hey, if Crosby has to miss a game or two, we should be. But after that, their next 8 games, 2 against Vegas, 2 against Boston. They play Buffalo. They play Utah. They play Philadelphia, who's right in the mix. So you know what? Every game is kind of a big game other than that. Then they got Colorado and Carolina. And then Colorado and Carolina the following week. Like they've got a tough schedule in March to the Pittsburgh Penguins. Boston twice, Vegas twice, Carolina twice. Actually, Carolina 3 times in the first 22 days of the month. They got Colorado twice. Like that is a murderer's row. Pittsburgh has one of the hardest schedules going. And if Crosby's out any period of time, I think they could fall out.
That's massive. That'll definitely open a door for sure. Yeah, that's a kind of murderer's row too. And Carolina, like those 3 games against Carolina, they're miserable to play against. They're so hard. Like it's just not just hard likely because they work you like a dog, but just it's such a mental grind too when you're playing against a Carolina Hurricanes. Just like how they live in your hip pocket the whole game and are just so frustrating. They just squeeze you. They just push you to the boards, they squeeze you inside. It's an awful team to play against. It's miserable. And you got to always be thinking. You got to always be thinking and always be aware. They're hard. They're hard to play against. Yeah. Big secret. Rod Brendamore's team's tough to play against.
Even with a healthy Crosby, they would be in tough because that schedule is tough, man. 15 games. You got Carolina 3 times, Colorado twice, Boston twice. Vegas type. That's 9 out of 15. Then you throw in Buffalo, who's played really well. Utah, man, it was so close, and you hope for Crosby's sake. I know he said, he was close to playing, but to me, close to playing, in the playoffs, in the gold medal, it's just different. We know that it's different, and I'm curious to see how many Olympians might be nagging injuries and might miss 1 game, 2 game, 2 weeks, something like that when we come back from this break. So. That to me is what.
Well, it's funny. I was talking to someone 2 days ago from an NHL team who said this is very unscientific, but just watching the games, there were a few players. I'm not sure if you observed the same thing in the 2 weeks leading up to the Olympics. Players that were going to represent their country kind of go into business for themselves at various points in the last couple of weeks before the break, just to make sure they weren't hurt. Just to make sure they weren't putting themselves in situations where they might get injured. Just an interesting comment, but I mean, this is someone with an NHL team was saying we were watching the games and it's okay, that's the going into business for yourself move. Oh, there's another going into business for yourself move. It's just interesting, right? With the Olympics that close, you never wanted to cost yourself the spots. It will be. True. I'll tell you what it'll be curious for. Jack Hughes, and some of it was from Mike Rupp on Tri-State, faced a lot of criticism for missing those games with the New Jersey Devils before he went to play in the Olympics. I'll be curious to see how Hughes does coming back to play for New Jersey now.
Yeah. Well, they need a miracle for them to get back in the playoff race. That's a team that's got a lot of defensemen, absolutely. Jeff. I have New Jersey at top of my list of a team that's going to trade a prominent defenseman.
I'm with you. Dougie Hamilton, top of that list. I will say one thing. The combination of Natchez and Fehervary, I thought were one of the best pairs that I saw over the past couple of weeks. Like Simon Nemec really showed, and is starting now to really show internationally and in the NHL why the New Jersey Devils took this guy second overall. I thought Nemec and Fehervary were outstanding in that tournament.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? They played really well. really well. And that's just, it's another example why to wrap up the pod about what we started with about the World Cup and, the Olympics and how awesome the Olympics were and, lots of great games and now what the decision is going to be for the NHL and what's the plan. I'm assuming they'll probably announce it this offseason. They'd like to give, 18 months of hype and leading up, and we know who's in it and who's not in it. And, will they try to delay the announcement because they're hoping to God that horrible war that's going on in Ukraine with Russia being the instigator if that ever ends. But you know what? They might just say, screw it. Sorry, we're going to announce it. And that means another time without Russia and boo-hoo. So we'll see. Jeffrey, enjoy the week. When we talk next, we will have NHL hockey to discuss.
Yeah.
That's the rundown brought to you by Bet365.
Hey, hockey fans, if you enjoyed that video, then make sure you hit the subscribe button right here on the Daily Faceoff YouTube. We have you covered for everything you need. Exclusive interviews on The Sheet with Jeff Marek, all the latest hockey news on Daily Faceoff Live, and you can always get your morning started with Johnny Lazarus and Colby Cohn on Morning Cup of Hockey. Don't miss a minute. Hit that subscribe button.